I wasn't planning on starting this year off by looking back at 2020, but this one was too big not to talk about. So sit down, settle in, grab a drink.
A martini, shaken, not stirred.
A perfect choice. Enjoy the rest of the video, Mr. Bond. Welcome to A Tough Act to Follow. I'm Preston, aka the Ploominator, and I will be your international super spy here to capture the secrets of a legendary actor who we have and will absolutely miss seeing on our screens. While this past Halloween should have been one of celebration, the unfortunate truth is we lost a legend, and even though there hasn't been a movie with him in it since 2003, it's still hard to accept that he's gone. There will never be another actor like Sir Sean Connery. So let's dive into the legacy he left and really explore what exactly it is that cemented him as a cinematic icon, and really let this unforgettable night do the victory lap of talented performances he deserves. Let's take the time to remember Sir Sean Connery and remind ourselves that he truly was a tough act to follow. Sean, first and foremost, is a highly physical actor. He's able to use his strong and agile frame to change the way he stands, moves, and reacts. He's able to be a towering figure of grandiose proportions, but also play meek and humble characters who have a small and somewhat reserved demeanor. But above it all, Sean is able to command a scene with his pure physicality alone. He has a presence and a quality which commands respect from those around him and allows him to play figures who are truly in charge of their surroundings, even in situations that are dire.
Steer right, 315.
Wait a minute, that's heading into the torpedo.
Steady bearing, still 315.
Estimate range 6,000 yards.
Still 315.
Steer right till this reach 315.
No, that's wrong. Ryan, don't turn that goddamn wheel.
315.
But his physicality is not the only quality which makes him able to command a scene. He also knows how to be patient and take his time. I've talked before about actors using silence to help convey a scene, but there's also an aspect of timing within those silences. Lines in movies have rhythms to them. They require a lot of practice to get right, and Sean was an expert at timing out those lines. He's able to know when to deliver the lines, and what particular cadences and tones will help make them land with the most solid of impacts. Whether it be in moments of intensity or ones which require a subtler approach, Sean knows how and when to say every line to make it match the story being told.
You are not in command here.
If the crew finds out, we could have a mutiny.
What you held talking?
Nonsense.
They could kill us all. That's right.
Everything that happens on this ship affects us all.
Master at Arms is already
Right.
We can still go back. All we have to say is
no going back.
Before we sailed, I dispatched a letter to Admiral Bedoran, in which I announced our intention to defect.
But these moments of timing are not only critical to a man in control of his situation, they must be even more precise to accurately portray a man who has succumbed to the height of his delusions. It's not an easy balance to play someone who's lost touch with reality, especially for extended periods of time. But Sean shows just how to balance all the aspects of a man living with a foot outside of that reality, and he especially shows how that delusional state can be taken in a way that is not of psychosis, but of a playful and childlike nature.
Let him put that in his paper if he has need of news.
It would have been wiser if you'd both gone home at the end of your army service.
Home to what? A porter's uniform outside a restaurant? And tanner tips from belching civilians for closing cab doors on them and their blousy women?
Not for us, thank you. Not after watching Afghans come howling down out of the hills and taking battlefield command when all the officers had copped it.
Well said, Brother Travis.
And this ability to be playful is increased by an absolute chemistry that Sean has with his co-stars. I'm sure you've heard the term chemistry before, probably relating to romantic partners in movies. But the truth is, establishing realistic relationships with your scene partners is paramount to every relationship in the movie, not just the ones based on physical attraction to each other. If I'm playing someone's best friend, and the first time that I've met that person is on the set right before we shoot that scene, we have to create that relationship from nothing. This requires a number of behind-the-scenes things to happen on both of our parts, but even if we do all those steps correctly on our own, none of it will matter if it doesn't seem like we can build that relationship. That's what I mean by chemistry. Sean is incredibly good at this. He can build a relationship with each of his co-stars that feels like there's a long and detailed history between them.
Peachy, I'm heartily ashamed for getting you killed instead of going home rich like you deserve to, on account of me being so bleeding high and bloody mighty. Can you forgive me?
That I can, and that I do, Danny. Free and full, and without let or hindrance.
Everything's all right then.
And so far, we've seen Sean in a couple of roles which really allow him to drive the story. But how do these character qualities differ when he's a supporting player? Will he be able to bring the same qualities to characters who don't get the commanding and powerful respect that he usually has? I mean, absolutely. He uses the same tricks of timing and chemistry to a different effect and creates a character who is no longer tough and commanding, but a bit of an out-of-his-element bookworm.
I will take the book now.
What book?
You have the diary in your pocket.
You don't. Do you think my son would be that stupid that he would bring my diary all the way back here? You didn't, did you? You didn't bring it, did you? Well, you did.
Dr. Henry Jones Sr. is a fantastic role for Sean because it makes him play against type. Type indicates the roles that an actor typically gets cast in. Certain people get cast as sidekicks, villains, leading men, etc., etc. For Sean, much of his career was driven by a few roles that he had early on which showed him as this tough alpha male. But in his later years, he took on much more caring and fatherly roles, which changed the way he was seen by the public. But we still knew it was Sean in those roles, and he was bringing the same thoughtful gravitas to each of them. And from the moment you heard his distinctive voice and knew that Sean Connery would be making his presence known in this movie, you knew it was going to be good. Even without seeing him, we could feel that gravitas, and that helped increase our excitement for the movie and his role in it.
Dad! It's important.
And wait. Count to 20.
No, Dad, you listen.
Junior!
1, 2, 3, 4.
In Greek.
Ena, Theo, Thea. Tessida, Dente.
May he who illuminated this illuminate me.
But this ability to be distinct doesn't mean that he is the same in each movie. Each character, whether a scholar, a king, a captain, or otherwise, is given a full life and really allowed to be their own character. And the characters serve the story in their own way, each one distinct even though they're played by the same actor. None of them feel the same, and they are able to let the story dictate their path and not the other way around, really letting their journey succeed or fail as needed by the story.
Want to get Capone? Here's how you get him. He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue. That's the Chicago way. And that's how you get Capone. Now, do you want to do that? Are you ready to do that? I'm making you a deal. Do you want this deal?
This role feels different than many of his other ones. It's still Sean, but he's vanished into Jimmy Malone. That's a talented thing for someone as well known as Sean to do. When you watch certain movies, it's hard to separate the actors playing the characters from the characters themselves. And many actors, especially when they reach a certain fame level, never really escape their own celebrity persona. But Sean manages to be known as himself and also disappear into his characters. He gives them enough nuance to be distinct from each other and never lets his celebrity status overshadow his work.
Brings a knife to a gunfight.
Get out of here, you dago bastard! Go on, get your ass out of here!
But even though Sean can disappear into his roles, doesn't always mean that he does. And while we love watching him in movies we've seen earlier in this video, we really enjoy him in the roles that made him who he is. He's Sir Sean Connery, he's an icon of cinematic history, and he started that journey with a role that cemented him in the pop culture zeitgeist forever.
He just drew the king of clubs. That makes his count 59. He's got a diamond run, 8, 9, 10. He's holding on to the 6 of spades, so I guess he thinks you want it. That last draw was the 8 of hearts. He needs kings and queens. Who are you?
Bond. James Bond.
While several other actors have had time to play the iconic 007, all of them have to live up to the work that Sean did first. He was the first one. He got to do it before anyone else. And he did so much to make the role what it was that it's argued that he's still the best actor who's ever played the role. And it's because he's committed to Bond just as much as he's committed to every other part. It's still given care and dedication and treated seriously even when the action and the dialogue can get a touch absurd. So why do we love Sean Connery? 1. Sean is commanding. His ability to take control of scenes and keep the focus on him, often without speaking, allows him to ensure that the characters and their intentions are clear and can flourish. And his ability to time his actions both physically and verbally keeps him focused and in control at all times on screen. 2. Sean has chemistry with everyone. His ability to connect with his fellow actors gives him the ability to keep the relationship between those characters feeling deeper and more real than it may be. And it also gives a history and an emotional weight that helps the characters further their stories. 3. Sean can play against type. He's not bound to certain characters and roles and can play characters who are brash, meek, aggressive, cowardly, reckless, hesitant, and so much more. He gives each role the dimension it deserves and never lets the role feel like a role he's played before. 4. Sean is distinct. He makes each role he plays his own and gives himself to the role in a way that no other actor would be able to. But he doesn't just let the role be him in another costume. He makes it just as dynamic as if he wasn't someone we'd already met before. 5. Sean is an icon. With his filmography, Sean is not only showing off his talents as an actor, but made himself someone who will forever be a staple of pop culture, and has really allowed him to stay as a screen presence and a household name even after he retired in 2003. So now you know just how talented Sir Sean was, but what movies really are the best ones to watch and celebrate the night in the noblest of ways? There are many, but if I had to narrow it down, I'd pick these ones. These are my 5 essential Sean Connery performances. 1. The Hunt for Red October. This movie is an impeccably told story about the virtue of communication and the dangers of miscommunication. It uses some of the smartest language choices to convey its story, and Sean is dynamite from start to finish, often stealing scenes away from others without speaking. 2. The Man Who Would Be King. Along with Michael Caine, Sean takes himself far less seriously and has much more fun in this adventure film. And you watch as he seems to lose his grasp on reality and gets caught up in his own hubris. And the imagery and scenery in the movie is spectacular as well. 3. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Sean was the perfect choice to play Dr. Henry Jones Sr. in this final entry in one of the greatest trilogies ever put to screen, and his chemistry with Harrison Ford creates a really interesting father-son relationship that helps keep the audience invested in the pair throughout the movie. 4. The Untouchables. This movie allows Sean to really show off his ability to disappear into a character, and his work as Malone is by far the best thing in the movie. Additionally, the creative cinematography and Brian De Palma's direction only helped to further Sean's performance and gave him a much-deserved Oscar in the process. 5. Goldfinger. If there is one role that will forever be Sean's, it's 007. His work as Bond is calculated, physically committed, slightly self-aware, and altogether iconic. He will forever be connected to the role, and any actor who has played this part since has to compare themselves to Sean above all others. You could pick any movie in the franchise, but Goldfinger is clearly the best one. And that is why Sir Sean Connery is a tough act to follow.